In a charming village full of farms, there lived a poor boy named Ethan. He was often seen walking the streets, his empty stomach growling, his clothes worn out and dirty. On a particularly cold winter morning, hunger pushed him to his limits, and he knocked on the old door of a farm cottage on the outskirts of the village. The door squeaked open, revealing a stern-faced woman, Mrs. Thompson, who frowned at the sight of the hungry boy.
"What do you want?"
she snapped. Ethan, his voice shaking, said,
"Please, ma'am, I'm hungry. Do you have any food to spare?"
Mrs. Thompson's eyes narrowed, and her lips curled with disgust.
"We have no food for beggars,"
she said, slamming the door shut. Despair washed over Ethan, but he refused to give in to it. He went to the back of the cottage, hoping to find some leftovers, when he stumbled upon a young girl, Sarah, who had heard their conversation. Sarah was a kind soul with a big heart. She got a glass of warm milk and offered it to Ethan with a gentle smile.
"Here, drink this. It's not much, but it's something to fill your stomach."
Ethan's eyes filled with gratitude as he took the glass. He drank it slowly, savoring each sip. Just as he finished, Mrs. Thompson burst into the room and saw her daughter's act of kindness.
"Foolish girl. Do you know what you've done? We have barely enough for ourselves, and you're giving away what little we have to this poor boy."
Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, but she stood her ground.
"Mother, he was hungry. I couldn't just turn him away."
Mrs. Thompson's harsh words stayed with Sarah for years, but they couldn't dampen her spirit. 20 years passed, and the village went through many changes. Mrs. Thompson's health began to decline, and the once proud woman found herself bedridden and in need of medical attention. Sarah, now a mature and caring woman, rushed her ailing mother to the village hospital. As they entered the clean environment, Mrs. Thompson felt a sense of vulnerability she had never experienced before. The surgeon on duty approached, and Mrs. Thompson's heart skipped a beat when she recognized him as Ethan, the same hungry boy she had chased away from her doorstep all those years ago. With professionalism and kindness, Ethan diagnosed Mrs. Thompson's sickness and successfully performed the necessary surgery. As he stood by her bedside, ensuring her recovery, Mrs. Thompson couldn't help but feel a deep sense of guilt. When it was time to discuss payment, Sarah hesitated and finally asked,
"How much do we owe you, doctor?"
She was handed a slip which simply had the words, "Paid for in full by a glass of milk."
"But why?"
she asked, puzzled.
"After all these years, why would you help us, especially when we were so unkind to you?"
Ethan's smile widened as he recalled that cold winter morning.
"As a doctor, helping those in need is my duty, ma'am, regardless of what they may have done to me in their lives. As for not taking any payment, that debt was repaid in full by a glass of warm milk you gave me when I was hungry and desperate. It taught me the value of kindness, and I will forever be grateful for it. A fine daughter must have learned her values from a fine mother, even if it did not show in the moment."
Tears filled Mrs. Thompson's eyes as she realized the profound lesson that life had taught her through this humble surgeon. It was a lesson in compassion, forgiveness, and the enduring power of simple acts of kindness.